This is me up here as well. This is me at the front. My name is Tamsin Fulton. I'm a service design consultant. I work mainly in the public sector. I'm an independent consultant. And what I've been doing over the last few years or more is really looking to apply the principles of design to the world of service design. Mainly because I realised I was a service designer without any kind of design knowledge in the public sector, being commissioned to, paid to commission all sorts of services and set up new programmes and things. And I wanted really to, I feel that things were working very well, and I wanted to get a better handle on what I was doing. And so I went to an MA at the Royal College of Art, and that really kind of, for me, cemented my approach and my methodology and my kind of thoughts around public sector service work, but also kind of community engagement as well. So basically I've been working mainly in London really with a lot of, I don't know how London-centric you are, but a lot of these kind of cross-cutting London public sector organisations, people like the GLA, Capital Ambition, London Councils, London Connects, people that look to work and bring kind of collaborative services together for the benefit of Londoners. I've also worked with individual local councils as well, but also some of the sort of kind of bigger, more kind of government departments, people like HMRC, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, people like that. And I'm going to talk to you today about the approach really that I've been taking, and it's going to be quite short, but it's kind of, I want to show you my methodology really and talk to you about how in different contexts it's been quite effective. Methodology and the approach that I've been using, I tend to tweak it and adjust it depending on the context of the public sector organisation that I'm working with. It's a design journey which some of you might be familiar with. It starts off with a kind of, what's going on, exploring kind of step, which is looking at, trying to look at the situation with fresh eyes in a new way. And I've got several approaches to this kind of stage. Sometimes it's about shadowing and following the customer around, and sometimes it's about role play and kind of understanding things again, kind of relearning. And the case studies I'm going to talk to you about, will explain some of these steps in a little bit more detail and give you some idea of how I've been going about it. So this is the basic kind of proposal of the work that I take frontline staff through. So I work mainly with frontline staff and customers, and I take them along this journey, which is a journey from exploration through to implementation, and using quite a standard sort of design framework. I might come back to this as I talk. So this is when you start with a project and when you start with a service. This is a service in a local authority council, and it's about temporary accommodation. So it's about providing really a stopgap for people that are homeless before they can go into a kind of permanent or a more long-term housing solution. The council don't have enough properties, and so what they do is they put people in temporary accommodation for a little while. Temporary is kind of a little bit of a misnomer because people can actually be in temporary accommodation for 6 or 7 years, quite a long time. And so the first thing we did is we wanted to, we were told very much that this was a small service, that people didn't really understand what they did, and that's not just customers or service users, that's actually their managers weren't really sure what this team were up to and kind of what was going on. And so the first thing we did was start to kind of map out the work and see what they were doing. And this was really quite groundbreaking in the sense that suddenly the team themselves, even the people doing the work, suddenly thought, oh my God, look at this, look at all the stuff we're doing, look at all the interactions that we're having, with other departments, with other team members, external organisations. And so this was a good start to just kind of set the scene, really. So this is kind of that beginning to explore the situation, try and look at it with fresh eyes. Oops. So, yeah, mean, in this situation, I work with frontline staff to shadow each other. So we wanted to have a look. You know, although they were familiar with the work they were doing and they worked with their colleagues all the time, we thought it would be good just for them to just step back and just follow a colleague through the process of helping somebody into temporary accommodation. And so, you know, so they were looking at the way the work was done, shadowing colleagues to gain insights, and I produced some tools that they could kind of capture those insights as well. Sometimes, you know, things are really obvious. This is from a hospital that I'm working in at the moment, and they've obviously got a problem with the ladies' toilet. And I'm fully expecting to go in next week to find 4 more signs on there as well. You know, sometimes things are really obvious that they're not working, but at other times it's not so obvious, and you need to spend a little bit of time with people to understand what's going on. And this is a project that I did with Somerset Council, where we went out and shadowed PCSOs, community volunteers, we went and shadowed road, highways, all sorts of people. And this was quite an interesting approach because we got rather than frontline staff, this was more involved the senior management team. And we got the chief exec working in a sort of an older person's drop-in centre, and he was serving tea for the day. And that got him, you know, understanding about how that community service worked, and kind of also gave him an understanding of the context in which that community centre was being used, and kind of understanding through talking to the older people that were coming in some of the problems in that community that he would never have understood sat back at the town hall in his office. So this approach is all about getting people kind of out of their seats, away from their desks, and out on the ground to see what's really happening. So this is back to the temporary accommodation team. This is looking, you know, at how you can capture what you're seeing, and you don't want to. You're not necessarily doing a kind of process map here. But what you're looking for is some of the kind of the emotional understanding of, wow, what it's like to do that job. What is it like to constantly have to tell people, no, you can't help them? You know, what does that feel like? What parts of the process feel comfortable? What parts of the processes don't? And through that, you know, you can begin to understand what is working well and what isn't working well. So, you know, having done, you know, all that shadowing, what you're really looking to do is create. This is where, you know, I'm bringing in some more design here in a more of a typical sense of how we think about design, which is about visualization. And this is about, you know, creating a shared view of how things work right now. So all of that shadowing, all of that exploring needs to kind of come together in some way so that you can then share that understanding of what's taking place within the organisation. So once you've kind of shared a common understanding amongst the team members, then you want to really share that with people that perhaps, you know, interact with your service in some way. So you're looking at, you know, inviting in colleagues from other teams and sharing what you've learnt with them and seeing what they think and getting their input as well, so that you're beginning to kind of, you know, you can see in the centre that there's one of those journey maps I was talking about on the last slide, but you're starting to build on that through other people's experiences as well, and kind of, you know, sharing and through that, you know, building up a much better picture of where the pressure points are, where things are working and where they're not working. Doing that process, you can see, creates a lot of post-it notes. And, you know, that can be quite daunting, and it's a very messy part of the process, where it's quite easy to feel just swamped with everything. So what you want to begin to do at this stage is really start to kind of group stuff and theme stuff, so that you're beginning to articulate some kind of framework, so you're beginning to sort of frame the challenges. And once you're doing that, you begin to see where the kind of the big ideas are, and what the big themes are, and what the big problem areas are. Once you've kind of framed your challenges and you know what it is you're trying to address, then you can begin to start to generate ideas. And there are a number of ways of doing this. This is a typical brainstorming session. And there are other approaches as well. I think I've got them on the next few slides. But this is where, we're really looking to create as many ideas as we can. We usually set a target of about 100, and we normally get that. So we've got loads of ideas, as wild and kind of as varied as we can gather. Another way is to, rather than doing a straight brainstorming, is to look at deconstructing the service. So through some kind of very simple visual prompts and kind of storytelling techniques, you can begin to say, look at how the service works and just move cards around to show how people interact with the service. And then, you can reconstruct the service in a different way, in a new way, quite simply and quite a quick way. So you're beginning to, come up with ideas for how things could be better. Once you've got, a great big list of how you might do things differently, or new solutions to old problems or new problems, you want to really look at those, like some of those ideas that you might want to take forward. So you've got 100 ideas, probably out of that, I don't know, 10, 15 really good ideas, workable ideas, or you think might be workable. So you use some kind of framework to evaluate those ideas, organisational kind of priorities, KPIs, whatever it might be. And the first stage is really just to get the idea in a format that you can share it with people and they understand what you're talking about. So visualising that idea is kind of really important at a very early stage. So, it's just about very quickly describing the idea in 15 words and, presenting it in a visual way that you can easily share with people. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of different kinds of prototypes. I showed you a paper prototype, which is kind of step one. Step two, once you've taken that paper prototype out to colleagues and you've started to get some feedback, you're beginning to shape the idea a little bit more, and you really need something that's going to kind of move you on to the second phase. And something a little bit more sophisticated. So you're slowly getting towards your prototype is kind of developing. And this is a prototype, again, connected to the temporary accommodation service I talked about. Well, what if we could actually show our service users right up front, where they're likely to be housed, addressing some of the problems that they identified. So it's a quick, and again, it's a visual prototype, and you can see they can quickly take that to colleagues within the housing department, see what they think, get their feedback, get their input, and even begin to try this out with customers. Not quite ready yet, but we're getting there. And in fact, in this example, I think there are about 3 more iterations of this map before we're ready to say, okay, let's start testing it. Sometimes a second phase prototype can take the role of a kind of like role-playing, really. This is actually a project I do with Think Public, which is to do with care homes, basically, working with older people. And we went into care homes and we're sort of, doing some co-design sessions with residents there, and also families and staff. And the project was actually a web service, a website. But when we were working with service users, it was, they weren't very up with kind of IT or didn't have the skills that were necessary. How do you test kind of I don't mean a service, I mean an idea, really, a concept that's kind of outside of their normal range. So, using cards was a really good way to get the idea across. So we're testing out the functionality of a website, but we're doing it on a sort of paper base so that we can begin to kind of get their input on the actual idea and some of the functionality in a very simple way. And then again, this is another prototype we were looking at for HMRC with what if it interacted with your business account, how would that work? So again, you visualise stuff. This is just a mock-up, it's just done in Photoshop. There's no website here at this stage. But what we're beginning to do is beginning to sort of visualise an idea in quite a strong way that we can easily have conversations with people about it and what they think and how it might work. Key to this process is kind of getting people together regularly to share feedback and share their learnings from asking people about what they think about their idea. How could this idea be better? How could this idea work for you? Those are the kinds of questions that people are asking, and we get people to kind of bring that back together with the rest of the group to share that experience. So yeah, very much encouraging people to get feedback and understand for themselves what's working and what's not working. I mean, if I don't know how familiar people are here with local authorities, but you might know that they do pilots quite a lot, which tend to be great big 6-month or more projects, which when you're involved in a pilot, and I've done many myself, you gather a lot of kind of vested interest in seeing that project, that pilot succeed. And the beauty of kind of this approach is it's about not being precious about an idea, actually being okay with scrapping an idea. It's okay to completely change an idea, halfway through. And so, this feedback is really helpful in terms of the group deciding together, what works and what doesn't work, and which ideas should be dropped and which ideas should be taken forward. What we're really moving towards all the time with these prototyping and sharing ideas and getting feedback is moving towards kind of live in-service prototyping, which is, you get an idea to a point where you think it's really good and people say it would work for them. You want to try it out in a live environment. You want to be quite controlled about that because we're dealing with, in this instance, which is the housing temporary accommodation again, you're dealing with vulnerable clients, and what you don't want to do is start messing things up, by testing. So you test it in quite a controlled way. You've tested it a lot already, and now you're ready to try it out for real. So this is about testing live in service again. Really encouraging people to listen carefully, observe, and see what's going on. Feel free to make changes on the fly if things aren't working. And rerun it until it gets the outcomes that you originally stated in your paper prototyping all those weeks ago. So you want to sort of, so you're measuring it against that. And once it's achieving what you wanted it to do, then you can go, okay, we're ready to implement this, or dump it, or whatever else. So this is just about, so saying, so all that work that you've done, all the feedback you've got, all the ideas, all the things that work and don't work, and what's good about the idea, and what the challenges would be to implementation, you've learned all that stuff through this process, and that just falls into an implementation plan at that point, so you know exactly what it's going to take to implement that idea. And this is just reiterating again about some of the prototypes were dropped at this stage. After live prototyping, they just don't work in practice, and so that you're only going live with prototypes that have been proven to work within the context. And again, so after you've created something and you've tested it and you're ready to implement it, sometimes you want to create a service blueprint, which just again means that you've all got the same understanding of what that service is and how it will work. And so visualising that is a good way, again, to kind of share and put everyone on the same page so that you're all working together. I think that's it.